the 78th Tour de France has found again the best rider in the race to wear the final maillot jaune in Miguel Indurain. It's been a race of great emotion, and you know, it remains one of the world's few true sporting events. The 78th Tour de France soon gave a gentle reminder to those with thoughts of winning in Paris not to rest too long in the comfort of the peloton, while allowing favourites like Greg LeMond and Eric Breukink to set an early trend by breaking clear on stage 1. LeMond finished third behind sprinter Djamolidine Abdoujaparov and immediately established more than a 2-minute advantage, and his target was already victory in Paris.
You better believe it.
In the team time trial, the Italian Ariostia team literally bounced back from a fall later in the same day to project a new owner of the Golden Fleece in the Dane Rolf Sorensen. This was to be his happiest day, but thoughts of holding on until the first long time trial faded when he crashed approaching Valenciennes. He finished the stage only to leave the Tour in an ambulance with a broken collarbone, sidelining a very talented rider. At Le Havre next day, Thierry Marie in his native Normandy filled the vacancy left by Sorensen, and he deserved it. After a long escape of 235 kilometres, the second longest successful escape in Tour history. The first time trial of 73 kilometres was eagerly awaited. And to a man, everybody expected Eric Breukink to be the next race leader. Instead, Breukink cracked 10 kilometres from the end, but he's a rider known to have one bad day in every Tour. Was this it?
Let's say that, and we have had it, but...
But time would show there was worse to come for Eric. Miguel Indurain was the winner of the time trial, a name that should have sent a chill down the backs of those with ambition. For Indurain was already a known climber, and now he'd shown the only other talent required to be a race winner, that of producing the goods in the long test against the watch. Greg LeMond, with no results all season but a known affinity to this event, was the new leader by 73 seconds from Breukink. Indurain was still 2 minutes 17 seconds behind. It was all beginning to seem routine. LeMond in yellow and winner of the past 2 tours, Breukink the challenger, and Indurain, well, no one was sure yet. Then the bombshell, the sight of Falk Bowden arriving in Quimper ill and far behind the elimination time. He personified his ailing PDM team, and by the next day, all 9 riders had gone, including Eric Breukink, 2nd overall, and Sean Kelly, 6th. A tragedy of no small proportion to the Dutch team, who seemed to have fallen foul of a bad batch of liquid glucose. By the rest day and a transfer by air to Pau and the Pyrenees, LeMond was still in yellow, and worried about the possibility of riders ganging up on him.
Everybody wants me to lose. You know, they could gang up on me.
The very next day, Greg had lost the lead, which passed to new French hope Luc Leblanc. A further day on, and Greg's misery was complete as Claudio Chiappucci headed home Miguel Indurain at the top of Val d'Oron, while an exhausted LeMond was being helped home by his faithful teammate Eric Boyer. Greg's race for the yellow jersey was already over, but did he have the application now to continue? Most expected him to give up the Tour de France, but they did not know the depth of this great rider. The stages between the Pyrenees and the Alps were cruel, not because of the terrain, but because of the baking sun which beat down unmercifully on the riders. But Indurain hardly raised a sweat, establishing a panache of a real leader of the pack. The feared ascent of Alpe d'Huez, the entry into the Alps, only served to anoint Indurain. He was now ready to take his place among the great names of the sport. Riding alongside Gianni Bugno, the rider he feared most, the unflustered Spaniard just marked time. Bugno never found the moment to leave Indurain, having to settle for his second win on Alpe d'Huez, but a gain of only 1 second in time. It was nothing. In the reign of the Alps on stage 18 to Morzine, LeMond's plight continued, and he plummeted to more than 14 minutes behind overall. But he continued, and you know, when champions who have made winning look so easy in the past refuse to give up now when they're in trouble. Then they are champions. Indurain, his long legs rarely under pressure this tour, and his ability to hide the pain of the day behind his handsome poker face will, at 27 years of age, make an outstanding winner, worthy of the final yellow jersey on the Champs Elysees today. Well, this morning, Miguel Indurain set off with a 3 minutes and 36 seconds advantage over Gianni Bugno of Italy. In third place, Claudio Chiappucci. He finished the tour second a year ago. Fourth, Charlie Motte. And fifth, the French surprise, Luc Leblanc. In sixth place, two-time winner, Laurent Fignon. That's a great ride for him. Seventh place, last year's winner, Greg LeMond. Eighth, the American Andy Hampston. Ninth, Pedro Delgado. And 10th, Gerard Rouet. Now in the two other competitions, in the green jersey competition, the Soviet rider Djamolidine Abdoujaparov, certain to win now with 316 points. In second place, the French sprinter Laurent Jalabert, and in third place, last year's winner of the green jersey, Olaf Ludwig. The polka dot jersey for the best climber this year, no challenge today either. Claudio Chiappucci will win that with 312 points. In second place, last year's champion here, Thierry Claverola, and in third place, Luc Leblanc.
And not surprisingly, this morning, the 158 survivors of this year's Tour de France in jubilant mood. This is Maurizio Fondriest having fun with the camera, because French television today taking the last 4 hours of this race live. And then it was time for a natural break. Well, there was a little shock in store for the owner of this house as Fondriest disappears. Happy smiles on Miguel Indurain. He knows now that everybody else will have to sing the song that we've all been singing for a week, singing Indurain. LeMond and Chiappucci, well, they've made plenty of headlines over the last year since the Tour de France, when their great battle, and it appears now that they are making friends. Both have been very scathing in their comments about one another, but this last week of the Tour de France, they really have made it up, buried the hatchet, and this looks like the proof. And the man kissing his wife here, Philippe Lubio, last year's champion, and Mark van Orso, sporting the latest in crash helmets. Well, they're paying for it, because this year the organisation has collected £80,000 in fines for them not wearing crash helmets. And this isn't allowed either. LeMond on television giving an interview, very strictly against the regulations. You can never speak to the rider when he's in the Tour de France, except when the race is almost over, it seems. And the surrender of the champion of Italy, Gianni Bugno, acknowledging now that he will finish second today. And an early celebration, too, for Eric Boyer of France. He was allowed to go ahead of the race by the peloton, meet his family, drink a glass of champagne, and I bet that repeats on him when he comes onto the Champs Elysees. Well, the joking is now over. The magnetism of the Champs Elysees is literally only a few kilometres away, and Greg LeMond has thrown in the first attack of the Tour de France today. And look at this, Paul. He's determined he's going to try and make the Champs Elysees first.
Well, he wanted to start the action, definitely. I think Greg wants to go out of this Tour de France with as much panache as he could. He hasn't managed to win the Tour this year, but anything that he could do, he would try to, and he would love to win the stage here on the Champs Elysees. At the moment, he's got 150 metres lead on the rest of the field, but there's been an incredible reaction behind.
Well, it may sound a strange thing to say, but Greg LeMond has actually enjoyed the last 2 or 3 days of this year's Tour de France. He was joking with us at the start of the time trial yesterday when he said, you know, I've never ridden a time trial in the Tour de France when I haven't been racing to win it. He says, I don't know what to do today. And the answer was he tried to do the best time, but he finished third. Well, today he's going to try and finish on a high note. And now the old familiar pattern of the Tour, the arrowhead of the peloton, as they start now to chase down Greg, because the French in this race will not want an American to take them into Paris. And the lead is now up to 40 seconds. We're on the edge of Paris now, and very shortly, I think it's over to Greg's right shoulder, Paul, is the Eiffel Tower.
Well, he'll see it for the first time, and that's a fantastic feeling. When you get there, you've ridden for 3 weeks, and there you know that you finished the Tour de France. It really is a magic moment for every rider to manage to come round here and get onto the Champs Elysees. LeMond just getting a word of encouragement there from Bernard Hinault. And I feel that the crowd have warmed to LeMond a lot more this year, because he's not been predictable. He hasn't been the definite winner of the Tour de France, but he's carried on and fought like a true champion, even in defeat.
The peloton crossing the Seine, and how lovely it looks today in Paris. It is high summer here. The sun is very, very warm indeed. just a gentle reminder of the torrid heat the riders had to face down in the Midi in France, which was just over a week ago now. And now they've come home to Paris. And in fact, it's been coming here since 1975, since Bernard Thévenet won the Tour de France here. And we can count the wet days on one hand. And there in the distance, you may have caught a glimpse of the Eiffel Tower. And Greg LeMond, with his back to it now, is thinking only of the other famous landmark of Paris, the Arc de Triomphe. And once he whips round the back of the Seine here and turns left along the back of the Place de la Concorde, that will be the next thing he'll see. Unfortunately, from the Place de la Concorde to the Arc de Triomphe, it's all uphill.
Don't forget, on this last day of the Tour de France, we'll be announcing the winners of our competition as soon as we know the winner of the Tour de France. So stay tuned. We'll announce the names at the end of the programme.
Swinging in now towards the Champs Elysees. His lead is 47 seconds. Greg LeMond may have lost his Tour de France, but he still holds hope of winning the last stage.
Well, definitely he's broken away at the right time. He surprised everyone. He's built up a lead of 1 minute, but at the moment the whole of the Banesto team is on the front of the main peloton, chasing Greg LeMond here as he comes under the line with 8 laps to go.
So Greg LeMond comes through, and you can probably hear the cheers here and the applause to the American. And that's what he wanted. He wanted to show everybody here in Paris he may have lost the Tour de France, but you won't get rid of him that easily. Here's the peloton. If anything, they've closed down the gap a little bit. It was 47 seconds at the last check. But now the Banesto, the champion team of the Tour de France, is bringing Miguel Indurain across the Place de la Concorde. And I've never seen so many spectators from Spain in the crowd. And you may catch a glimpse of the flags, but everybody seems to be waving the red and yellow flag of Spain here on the Champs Elysees. The whole peloton comes in, and Greg LeMond has gone through with a lead of around 45 seconds, but 8 full laps of the Champs Elysees. It's 6 kilometers a lap, and that is going to take some holding off.
It's very difficult. I've never known anybody to win on this stage all alone to stay in front, because it's so hard. The speed of the main field is absolutely unbelievable. The whole of the Banesto team are on the front there at the moment, with Miguel Indurain sitting behind them in their shelter. They'll be doing something like around about 30 miles an hour. They won't feel the pain for the moment. They'll be so pleased that they've got here to Paris without any problems for Miguel Indurain.
Official time gap as they went through, 57 seconds. So Greg LeMond now is heading up towards the Arc de Triomphe. The first time in his last 4 Tours de France when he hasn't gone towards this in the yellow jersey. Well, not quite so, of course, because he took the yellow jersey here 2 years ago, but he's always been a winner. And now, can he survive the breakaway? That would really make him a champion if he could win now on the Champs Elysees. Well, LeMond won't go down without a fight, that's for sure.
No, but the gap's coming down all the time as the chasing group comes over the line. It's 30 seconds, and the main field is just 5 or 10 seconds behind them. So it looks as if LeMond's lap of honor is about to end, because there are some very, very rough faces out there. Everybody's grimacing, and even the Banesto team seem to be suffering. They're not as organized as they were a lap ago.
Djamolidine Abdoujaparov proved during this year's Tour de France that he's one of the best sprinters in the world. In so doing, he took the green jersey along the way. He knows what he wants and will do anything to get it. This doesn't always endear him to his rivals, but his method of sprinting has been loved by the fans. Claudio Chiappucci is another rider who is not always appreciated by his peers. But you have to like this rider, whose tactics do not conform to any handbook. He has attacked at every opportunity during the Tour, be it on the flat stages or in the mountains. His belief is that cycling is a show, and he has tried to entertain throughout the race. Jean-François Bernard, after a few years in the trough of the wave, is certainly on the way back. I'm always impressed, especially when I witness a totally unselfish performance by a rider, as was his on the climb to Alpe d'Huez, when he paced Indurain without any thought of his own position. Luc Leblanc's courageous performances have revealed him as a possible winner of the Tour de France. His ride to the Alpe d'Huez in the company of Gianni Bugno and Miguel Indurain proved that his escape to Jaca was not a lucky one. You have to be impressed by LeMond's show. For the first time, totally defeated, he would not surrender in this, the most prestigious cycling event. He soldiered on for himself, his team and the fans to confirm that he's a real champion in victory and in defeat. Last but first to Paris, Miguel Indurain. In the past, he has been a dedicated lieutenant to Pedro Delgado, sacrificing himself whenever necessary for his leader's cause. This year, the man from Navarro has come of age. He is now the leader. He sowed the seeds of victory in the time trial to Alençon. The stage to Van Laurent saw him taking the yellow jersey in a dominant manner. And now, as he rides the final laps of honour on the Champs Elysees, does he feel that his success will change him?
I don't know, but I'll find out. I hope it won't change me. In the first couple of months, I'll enjoy it. But later, I hope things go back to normal.
Well, that marvellous attack, in fact, by Greg LeMond has been swept up. It was inevitable, and the 26 riders that merged, they were swept up as well. This has been a marvellous attacking race, and now there is a new group moving clear, and the yellow jersey himself is now paying close attention. This is Indurain.
Well, with 1.5 laps to go now, it's all come back together. So the Carrera team have got to keep the pressure on because there's still so many other riders would like to get away. We may see the Buckler team trying to attack. You see the leading 9 riders there have sat up. They've been joined by the main field.
Steve Bauer, his Motorola team in their first Tour de France, have one stage win with Phil Anderson. Bauer, twice a wearer of the yellow jersey in the Tour de France over the last 2 years, but this year really hasn't been a competitor for yellow at all. And now trying to finish off on what would be a very high note indeed. He has, I suppose, 3 kilometres to go to the finish, and he's riding into the wind and heading down the other side of the Champs Elysees, and he's holding off 157 riders.
Well, he's had a hard start to the Tour de France, Bauer, at the moment. He's really started to ride a little bit better towards the end here. He's got about 100 metres lead on the whole field, but the whole field being led by the Carrera team, who don't want anybody to escape. And it looks as if Bauer's going to get swept up, and it looks like we may have an incredible sprint. There is the green jersey of Abdoujaparov in about 6th place.
In fact, the Tashkent Tornado is into 5th place now, and he is looking extremely alert. The kill is in sight, and right now it's Steve Bauer they're hunting for. But the Carrera boys are being helped as well by the Buckler team, because they have a good sprinter too in Eric van der Aarde, and they are by no means out of this sprint. Something new to report, something new has happened, and the man who's come out on top without a shadow of a doubt, the best rider in this Tour de France, Miguel Indurain, and the riders themselves agree with that, and that is the highest compliment you can pay a winner of a race. The Carreras still work their hearts out. For the man in green, you can spot him now, just occasionally on the far side. There he is now, slipping through on the inside, slipping down in the tunnel. He's not going to be, he'll be in 2nd or 3rd place when he comes out of this tunnel.
Well, what a man to have a lead out there. It's all together. Bauer has been caught. Guido Bontempi's in 2nd place there, an ideal man to lead out the sprint for Abdoujaparov. Just behind him, though, is Djamolidine, who's no mean sprinter himself, and also Phil Anderson in 3rd place, just in front of Abdoujaparov there.
Well, this is going to be a rough and tumble of a sprint finish. This is going to be not for the nervous, and I don't just mean the bike riders on this occasion, because Abdoujaparov is the most fearsome sprinter. His bike goes one way, he usually goes the other, and the riders know this, and they'll give him plenty of room, but it'll be a tight finish because you come off that right-hand bend into the line. And the finish is then something like, looking down the road here, it looks to be about 400 yards from the corner to the finishing line. And unlike most stages of the Tour de France, the riders know this finish. They've been passing through it 8 times already today.
Big organisation now from the Panasonic team, still chasing that victory. You see Mark Sargent at the front there. In 3rd position behind him is Olaf Ludwig.
And they put Abdoujaparov in something of a box here. He's gone 3, 6, 7 men down. He's freed himself. He's now lined up into 5th place. That's a good position for the man with his power sprint. As they line up for the finish now, the Panasonics, Bucklers and Carreras look like fighting out the finish here now. And as they start now, Jan Shaw on the right, on the far left of our picture is Abdoujaparov. See how much room they give him, because once his elbows start working, Olaf Ludwig takes him on nicely. Oh, and he's gone! Abdoujaparov has gone and taken out. Shaw has gone down with him as well, as the stage has been won there by, I think it was Dmitry Konishev, who crossed the line in 1st place. And you know, I'll have to wait and see what happened there, but it looked to me as though Abdoujaparov caused the crash himself and went down by himself, Paul.
He actually touched one of the barriers at the side of the road, I think, there. He was trying to come up the inside, and he just couldn't control it, and he went down. But let's not forget, he still got across the line.
But the question is now, can Djamolidine Abdoujaparov cross the line? And everybody here hopes he can. Let's have a look at that sprint once again. That's Shaw in the centre in the black jersey. Ludwig is the far right. Now, it's just about now where Abdoujaparov, looking as though he may have been beaten here by the former East German sprinter, Olaf Ludwig. He puts his head down, goes to the barriers, looks up too late, hits the barriers. His bike brings down Jan Shaw, and then behind Jan Shaw, one of the other Gatorade boys hits the deck as well. Well, there you can now see the face and the blood of Djamolidine Abdoujaparov, quite clearly stunned. It was a very nasty fall indeed. And what a sad end to the Tour de France too, because this rider has brought so much colour to it, but he is such an erratic sprinter. And I can say that a lot of cyclists here will say it was only to be expected.
Well, let's begin with the stage result of the final stage of the Tour de France. The 5th win for a Soviet rider, Dmitry Konishev getting his 2nd stage win of the Tour de France. Olaf Ludwig 2nd, Henri Abadie 3rd, Henrik Redan 4th, and Phil Anderson in 5th place. But the story today is about Djamolidine Abdoujaparov, the rider who came up towards the finish. He looked certain to win the stage and put his head down and collided with the Coca-Cola bottles, and this, I think, is probably the worst crash I've ever seen in a sprint in a stage of the Tour de France. As all of the riders go into the back of Djamolidine Abdoujaparov, the little Soviet sprinter is left lying in the road. Blood coming from his face, he's clearly dazed. The rules of the Tour de France say you must cross the line to claim your prize. And so, helped by a number of people while the police kept the crowd back, Djamolidine Abdoujaparov ends his Tour de France very dazed, but he does end his Tour de France before going into the Astro wagon. He will now keep that green jersey, the first Soviet rider ever to win it in a Tour de France. The overall classification and the top 3 men on the podium today, waving to the crowd, Miguel Indurain in yellow, and the 2 men who chased him around France, Gianni Bugno, the champion of Italy, on our left of the picture, and Claudio Chiappucci on the other side of Indurain. The full result, well, Indurain beat Bugno by 3 minutes 36 seconds. Claudio Chiappucci is 3rd. Charles Motte of France is 4th. Luc Leblanc 5th. Laurent Fignon, he finished 6th. Greg LeMond finished 7th in the end. Andy Hampston 8th. Pedro Delgado 9th. And Gerard Rouet, another Frenchman, took 10th place. And both our Australians finished the Tour de France. That in itself, you know, is a remarkable achievement. Phil Anderson finished 45th and won the stage. He was almost there again today. And Stephen Hodge finished in 67th place. Stephen Hodge was on a top team. The whole team didn't fire well this year, but they did a good Tour of Spain and a good Tour of Italy. I suppose you can't win always. Well, after the riders crossed the line here on the Champs Elysees, Adrian Swift was with them both.
Phil, you finished with a bit of a bang there?
Yeah, well, you know, I was feeling okay, but I had to do a lot of work just before the finish there to pull back that group. And I still felt strong, you know. Steve was out with 1 lap to go, you know, out in front, so I just kind of hanging on the wheels, and then, you know, got a bit of a chop in the sprint, and then there was a fall in front of me, so, you know, might have done a bit better, but it's difficult to win the last stage.
What's it like riding in here to Paris?
Oh, it's great, you know. It's such a fantastic finish to a race, you know. There's millions of people here, and it's something very special. There couldn't be too many other, you know, events with ambience like this.
Can you hear it when you're riding down the road?
Oh, yeah, certainly, you know. It's great, you know, especially if you're riding in front or if you're attacking or if you're aggressive, you know, that you really get right behind you. It's really encouraging.
And what do you think your strongest memory of this year's Tour de France will be?
Oh, obviously winning the stage there in Kimber, you know, was very memorable. You know, something like that doesn't come every day, and Well, if I could do one of those every year, it'd be great, you know, but still have my head screwed on, and if I can do that again next year, I'll be very happy.
Mate, the peloton really seemed to be working up and down here.
Working, is that what you call riding 52 kilometres an hour? Yeah, it was. Towards the finish, we were just going flat out, you know, it was really fast.
What's it like, and you hear the crowd with you?
Oh yeah, I mean, the roar just follows you along, you know, as you're riding up and down. And especially today was incredible. I was sitting in the bunch just going, this is unbelievable. First we had Le Mans, who entered the Champs Elysees broken away on his own. And then we had a breakaway, a very serious one, you know, right through most of the laps. And then in the finish we had a break with the leader and the third place rider in it, only five or six riders. I mean, that's incredible. And none of this is planned. It's all sports, you know, it's stinkum, you know, it's incredible.
Well, there's no doubt those two Aussies will be back for another dose of the Tour de France next year. Now to the result of our competitions. The man who named the winner of the Tour de France, Tristram Connolly from Queensland. Well done, Tristram. You have won yourself a Motorola phone and a Europa bicycle. Our other competition for a holiday for two people here in France, by bicycle of course, courtesy of UTA French Airlines and Outdoor Travel. The winner, Noel Newell from Victoria. Well done, Noel. Now find yourself a friend and come on over. This has been a great Tour de France. We've enjoyed bringing it to you exclusively on SBS for the very first time, and we hope we'll be back with you again next year. But for the moment, from the Tour de France, for the last time, after what has been a marathon too for the SBS team, from Adrian Swift, all the boys behind the camera, and Paul Showen, my colleague, goodbye from France.